It was supposed to be just another winter patrol, a quiet night over the Hudson Bridge, cold, calm, routine. But what Officer Ethan Ward and his canine partner Rex found that night wasn't a traffic call. It was a test of faith, a collapsing bridge, a trapped child, and a loyal German shepherd who refused to let go, even when the river froze and the fire burned. What began as one rescue would become a miracle that united an entire city and proved that sometimes God's angels don't have wings. They have paws. Stay till the end, because what this dog did next will break you and then heal you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Because tonight's story might just be the miracle you've been waiting for. Snow fell in thick, violent sheets, swallowing the skyline of Riverside beneath a storm that howled like an angry god. Wind clawed at the steel beams of the old Hudson Bridge, bending them to its will, while the river below churned, half ice, half fury. Officer Ethan Ward gripped the steering wheel tighter as his patrol SUV groaned against the wind. He was in his late 30s, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from years of duty and sleepless nights. A faint stubble framed his square jaw, and his grey-blue eyes carried the heavy stillness of a man who'd seen too much. A man who'd buried too many names behind badges. He wasn't always like this. There was a time when he used to laugh easily, back when his wife was alive, before the drunk driver on Highway 17 shattered that world into glass and silence. Beside him sat Rex, a 6-year-old German shepherd with a thick tan and black coat and intelligent amber eyes. Every muscle in Rex's body seemed made of purpose. He was no ordinary canine. He was Ethan's last partner, his last friend. The two shared a rhythm that didn't need words. A look, a breath, a heartbeat was enough. The radio crackled. Unit 12, we've got a report of a vehicle stranded mid-span on the Hudson Bridge. No response from the driver. Proceed with caution. Ethan glanced through the windshield. The wipers barely kept up. Copy that, he said, voice steady. He turned to Rex with a small smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. Another night, buddy. Let's make it home this time. They parked near the base of the bridge. Red and blue lights from the cruiser painted the icy girders in ghostly colors. Ethan stepped out, cold air cutting straight through his uniform. His boots crunched against frost and grit as he moved forward, flashlight beams slicing through the fog. Rex followed close behind, nose low, breath misting. The bridge groaned beneath their weight, an uneasy song of age and rust. In the distance, Ethan spotted the stranded vehicle, a dark SUV, hazard lights blinking weakly like the last heartbeat of a dying star. Dispatch, I've got eyes on the vehicle, he reported. No visible movement inside, moving in. As they approached, Ethan felt the vibration first, a low, ominous tremor beneath the steel. He froze. The wind howled louder, carrying the distant scream of twisting metal. Then, a thunderclap of terror. The center section of the bridge exploded downward with a deafening roar. The world turned white and red and black all at once. Ethan was thrown off his feet, body colliding with the railing before plunging into the freezing water below. Cold. It wasn't just cold, it was death itself. The shock ripped the air from his lungs. He gasped, fighting to stay afloat as chunks of concrete and steel rained from above. His flashlight vanished into the dark water, replaced by chaos. "Rex!" he shouted hoarsely, spinning, searching the waves. "Rex!" No answer. Only the shriek of bending metal and the distant hiss of fire. His vision blurred as icy water filled his boots, dragging him down. But then, a faint sound. A bark. Weak, desperate, coming from somewhere upstream. Ethan's heart slammed in his chest. He kicked, forcing himself through debris. Smoke burned his throat, and each breath tasted like iron. Through the haze, he spotted a shadow. Rex, paddling furiously toward the remains of the vehicle, barking into the dark. And then Ethan saw it. A small hand, pale, trembling, reaching out from the half-submerged car. The child inside was alive. God! Ethan gasped, adrenaline overriding the cold. He swam faster, ignoring the shards that tore into his jacket. The bridge above continued to crumble, sending sparks and glass raining down, but all he saw was that tiny hand waving weakly in the storm. Rex reached the car first, placing his paws on the door, barking frantically as if to call Ethan to hurry. His fur was slicked flat with water, his eyes locked on the trapped figure inside. Ethan reached them seconds later, gasping, fingers bleeding from the cold. He could barely see the girl's face through the cracked window, maybe 6, maybe 7, hair matted, tears frozen on her cheeks. She mouthed something he couldn't hear. "Hold on, sweetheart," Ethan whispered, voice shaking. "We're here, we're not leaving you." Rex barked again, pressing against the car as if to shield her from the falling ash of burning wreckage. Ethan tried to pull the door, but it wouldn't budge, jammed tight by twisted steel. He needed leverage, air, strength, anything. But the bridge roared again. Another section gave way, and a massive girder plunged into the river just yards away, sending a tidal wave of freezing water over them. Ethan clung to Rex's collar, pulling them both up. The girls screamed, the sound muffled beneath the storm, and then silence, only the echo of despair and the sound of their hearts beating against death. When Ethan blinked the water from his eyes, the car had slipped lower, almost fully submerged. He reached down, one arm already numb, and grasped the girl's tiny fingers through the broken glass. He looked into her terrified eyes, and something inside him reignited, a flame that refused to die. "Rex!" he shouted. Pull now!" Rex growled, bracing himself against the debris, muscles straining. Together they fought the river, man and dog against the storm. The ice cracked, the current screamed, and for one fleeting second, Ethan thought he saw the girl's face in the firelight, hope shining through the chaos. Then the bridge shuddered again, a dying beast collapsing under its own weight. Ethan felt himself slipping beneath the current, the child's hand tearing from his grip, and just before the world went black, he saw that small hand rise again, waving weakly from beneath the wreckage. The river roared with rage, carrying fragments of the bridge like bones of a fallen beast. Ethan's limbs burned with exhaustion, his uniform torn and heavy with water. The child in his arms coughed weakly, her tiny body trembling against his chest. "Stay with me, sweetheart," he murmured, voice hoarse from shouting. Her lips were blue, her hair matted to her forehead, but her eyes, wide and frightened, still searched for something in the chaos. Beside them, Rex swam through the freezing current, every movement deliberate despite the blood that darkened his fur near his shoulder. He was limping, one paw dragging slightly beneath the surface, yet he refused to stop. His teeth clenched around a piece of the girl's torn jacket, guiding them toward the shallow bank where flickers of firelight danced on broken ice. When Ethan finally reached the shore, He collapsed to his knees, gasping. The world spun. Snow and ash fell together, soft and cruel. He laid the girl down gently on a patch of gravel, brushing her hair from her face. "What's your name, honey?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The child blinked, her breath shallow. "Maya," she whispered. "My mummy's still on the bridge." Ethan froze. His pulse spiked. "The driver?" Maya nodded weakly. "She couldn't get out. She told me to hide." Ethan's throat tightened. He looked back at the river where the bridge sagged like a wounded serpent, its middle section gone. The structure groaned, threatening to collapse entirely. And then he heard it. A faint, distant cry carried through the wind. A woman's voice, muffled by smoke and steel. Rex lifted his head, ears pricked. He barked once, sharp and urgent, then stared at Ethan as if to say, "We're not done yet." "God help us," Ethan muttered, wrapping his jacket around Maya. "Stay here, sweetheart. Someone will come for you soon." He looked up the embankment, and through the snow appeared a figure running toward them, flashlight cutting through the haze. It was Sarah Lynn, a paramedic from the city's emergency unit. Sarah was in her early 30s, slender yet strong, her face pale against the cold. Dark strands of hair stuck to her cheeks under the edge of her orange rescue hood. She had a reputation for composure under chaos, but tonight, fear glimmered behind her brown eyes. "Ward!" she shouted over the wind, kneeling beside Maya. "Oh my God, how many survivors?" "Just her," Ethan said, voice raw. "Her mother's still up there." Sarah's jaw tightened. "That bridge won't last 10 more minutes." Ethan wiped blood from his temple, forcing himself upright. "Then I've got 9. Sarah reached out, gripping his arm. "Ethan, you'll get yourself killed." But he was already moving, Rex beside him, both swallowed by the red haze of emergency lights. They climbed back toward the mangled structure. Every step sent shards of metal groaning underfoot. Steam rose from the ruptured fuel line, and the air stank of burning oil. Halfway across the wreckage, Ethan spotted the overturned car, pinned beneath a massive beam. Inside, through the fractured glass, he saw a woman's face, pale and blood-streaked, but alive. "Mom!" he yelled. "Can you hear me?" The woman's eyes fluttered open. "My daughter, is she safe?" "She's with the medics. You're going to be fine, but we need to move now." He tried the door. It was crushed, immovable. Rex barked, circling the wreck, searching for another way in. The structure above them groaned ominously, raining sparks. Ethan grabbed a metal rod and jammed it into the frame, using it as leverage. His muscles screamed, veins standing out on his arms as he forced the door open an inch, then 2. "Come on! Come on!" Finally, with a metallic shriek, the door gave way. Ethan reached in, grabbing the woman by her arm. She cried out. Her leg was trapped. Rex barked again, frantic now, pawing at the debris where her foot was pinned. Ethan followed the dog's lead, heaving at the twisted steel until it shifted just enough for her to pull free. He lifted her into his arms just as the final support beam above them began to bend, splitting with a scream of metal. "Hold on!" he shouted, sprinting across the slick wreckage as Rex led the way. Behind them, the entire section of the bridge gave way, collapsing into the icy abyss with a thunderous roar. A wave of steam and fire chased them as they leapt clear, Ethan hitting the ground hard, still shielding the woman in his arms. Rex skidded to a halt beside them, shaking off water and ash. The woman coughed weakly, tears streaming down her soot-covered face. "Thank you. You saved us." Ethan exhaled, chest heaving, staring up at the burning skeleton of the bridge. "No," he said softly, glancing at Rex. "We saved you." The smell of gasoline and scorched metal thickened the air, mixing with the biting cold. Ethan's ears rang from the last explosion, his chest heaving as he scanned the wreckage below the bridge. Through the haze of firelight, he saw it. A large tanker truck, half submerged, its cab crushed beneath twisted steel. The orange glow of leaking fuel spread across the water like veins of liquid fire. Ethan's instincts screamed to stay back, but a faint voice pierced the roar of the wind, a man's cry for help. He gritted his teeth. "Rex, get back to Sarah. Get Maya and her mother clear." The German shepherd hesitated, amber eyes flicking from Ethan to the flames. His fur was damp, glistening under the flicker of chaos, muscles trembling from fatigue. But when Ethan turned to dive, Rex let out a low, determined growl and followed. Ethan plunged into the freezing water, the shock of it stealing his breath. The heat from the fire above clashed with the icy current below, turning the surface into a suffocating steam. He forced his way toward the overturned cab, fingers bleeding as they scraped against jagged metal. Inside, trapped beneath a bent steering column, was the driver. A man in his 40s with a grizzled face and streaks of soot across his forehead. His name tag read D. Harris. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, and filled with disbelief. "Don't move!" Ethan shouted. We're getting you out." Harris coughed violently, his voice broken. "The tanks!" Cracked. One spark. "And we're done." "Then let's not give it a chance." Ethan wedged his shoulder under the doorframe, straining against the metal. The weight wouldn't budge. He could hear the hiss of leaking fuel, the groan of steel expanding from heat. Time was collapsing. Rex appeared beside him, water dripping from his muzzle, barking furiously as if to push him harder. Then the dog did something unexpected. He dove beneath the truck, disappearing under the surface. "Rex!" "No!" Seconds passed that felt like hours. Then a sharp, metallic clink. The dog had grabbed something, the end of the rescue strap still clipped to Ethan's belt. Rex pulled it toward the cab, wrapping it around the steering wheel base with instinctive precision. Ethan's eyes widened. "Good boy! Hold it there!" He looped the other end around a beam and pulled with everything he had. The door bent outward with a painful screech. He reached inside, gripping Harris under the arms, dragging him free. The tanker let out a deep, hollow moan, and then ignited. A flash of white. A roar that split the night. The explosion threw them all into the river like rag dolls. Ethan hit the water hard, pain exploding in his ribs. The shock stole his breath again as burning debris rained around him. He surfaced, coughing, eyes searching frantically. "Rex! Harris!" The flames reflected in the black water, and through it he saw a faint movement. Rex, paddling weakly, teeth clenched around Harris's jacket, dragging the unconscious driver toward a floating tire. The dog's body trembled from exhaustion, his back scorched from the blast. Ethan swam with everything left in him, closing the gap. He helped hoist Harris onto the debris, slapping his face until he coughed water. You're okay. Stay with me. A wave crashed over them, spinning everything into chaos. When Ethan came up again, gasping, Rex was gone. "Rex!" he screamed, spinning in circles. The current tore at him. "Rex!" No answer, just smoke. Ethan's chest tightened with a fear deeper than pain. He dove again, eyes stinging, searching beneath the orange-lit surface. And there, sinking slowly into the darkness, was Rex's collar, glinting silver in the firelight. He reached out, but his strength was gone. The current dragged him back toward the shore, and by the time he collapsed on the bank, coughing up water, all he could do was clutch the collar to his chest. Above him, sirens wailed. Sarah's voice echoed distantly, calling his name. Ethan stared at the flames consuming the wreckage. His throat burned, but no sound came. Rex was gone, and in the reflection of the fire he saw his own face, hollow, broken, and utterly alone. The only thing left of his partner was the collar, half melted, still warm from the fire. Morning came grey and hollow. The storm had passed, but it left behind a world of silence, bridges broken, ice scattered like bones, and the faint smell of smoke still clinging to the riverbanks. Ethan stood alone by the water's edge. The wreckage of the Hudson Bridge loomed in the distance, its twisted skeleton rising through the mist. In his hand he held Rex's collar, bent, half-melted, and still streaked with dried blood. His knuckles were white around it. Snow drifted lazily over his uniform. The bandage across his temple was stiff with dried blood, and fatigue carved deep shadows beneath his eyes. Reporters had come, medals were offered, and speeches were made. The hero of Riverside, they called him. But Ethan hadn't said a word. He couldn't. Because the only hero he saw that night had 4 legs and a heartbeat that no longer answered. Sarah Lynn found him that morning. She approached quietly, her orange paramedic jacket bright against the dull snow. The wind tugged strands of black hair loose from her hood. She looked young when she didn't speak, almost fragile, but her eyes were the kind that had seen too much pain to ever truly rest. "You've been here all night?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded. "Couldn't leave him out here." She crouched beside him, her gloved hand brushing snow from the ground. "You did everything you could. Rex saved 3 lives that night, including yours." He didn't answer. His voice had dried up somewhere between the bridge and the morgue. After a long silence, Sarah stood and offered a small wooden box. "The department sent this, a service medal for Rex. They thought you should have it." Ethan opened the box. Inside, the medal gleamed beneath the weak sunlight, engraved with the words, "For valor beyond measure." He closed it again, quietly. He wouldn't care about a medal. Sarah's gaze softened. "Maybe not. But he'd care that you came back." Before Ethan could respond, a young firefighter jogged toward them. His name tag read Jack Morales, no older than 25, lean, olive skin, still carrying that raw eagerness of a man new to tragedy. His uniform was soaked, his breath forming clouds. "Sir," Jack said, panting, "we finished sweeping the east bank. Nothing but debris. But we did find, He hesitated, glancing at Ethan. "We found blood traces, small prints, paw-sized, leading upstream before they disappeared into the snow." Ethan froze. "Are you sure?" Jack nodded. Could be from one of the K9 units, but none were deployed after midnight. Thought you'd want to know. Ethan's heart thudded once, hard. Logic said it was impossible. The river was sub-zero. Even a trained K9 couldn't survive that long. But the sound of Rex's bark, the way it cut through the storm, echoed in his skull like a heartbeat. He muttered, "Thank you, Jack." When the young firefighter left, Sarah frowned. "You don't actually think—" "I don't know what I think," Ethan interrupted quietly. "But if he's out there, I'll find him." That night, he drove back to the river again. The world was asleep beneath a thin curtain of snow. He parked his jeep near the ruins of the bridge, engine humming softly. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to breathe. The river glimmered faintly under the moonlight, silent, indifferent, eternal. And then, faintly, something stirred behind him. A soft scratching sound against the rear of the jeep. Once. Twice. Ethan turned slowly, his pulse spiking. He opened the door, snow crunching under his boots. Out from the darkness limped a familiar shape, wet fur, trembling legs, and those amber eyes that still burned with life. "Rex," Ethan whispered, his voice cracking. The German shepherd whined weakly, tail thumping once against the snow. His left paw was bandaged with torn fabric, as if someone, or something, had tended to him. His fur was matted, but his gaze was steady, unwavering. Ethan dropped to his knees, arms open. "You stubborn miracle!" Rex stumbled forward and pressed his head against Ethan's chest. For a long moment, neither moved. Only the sound of wind and quiet sobbing filled the night. Ethan looked up at the sky, grey and endless. And for the first time since the bridge fell, he smiled. The ghost in the snow was no ghost at all. Rex had come home. The storm had long since passed, but Riverside was still healing. Snow blanketed the riverbanks, hiding the scars of destruction beneath a clean, white shroud. A new bridge was rising, taller, stronger, its steel frame gleaming under the pale winter sun. Ethan stood by the construction site, his coat collar turned up against the wind. A week had passed since Rex returned from the dead, limping from the shadows like a ghost refusing to fade. The dog now lay at Ethan's feet, bandaged and weary but alive, his fur thinner, his gait uneven, yet his amber eyes still burned with that same indomitable fire. 3 miles, Sarah Lynn said softly from behind him, arms crossed, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She wore her paramedic jacket open, her dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail, her face marked by sleepless nights. That's how far the divers said he swam before they found traces of blood in the water. Ethan turned toward her, his expression caught between awe and disbelief. 3 miles. Through ice. Sarah nodded. And against the current. Rex lifted his head slightly, tail thumping once against the snow. Ethan knelt beside him, resting a gloved hand on the dog's neck. "You really are something else, partner." From behind them, the sound of boots crunching in snow drew their attention. A tall man in a navy blue parka approached. Captain Raymond Holt, head of Riverside's police department. He was in his 50s, broad-shouldered, with a salt-and-pepper beard trimmed with military precision. His dark eyes carried both authority and fatigue, the kind that comes from decades of watching good men fall and still finding the strength to lead the rest. "Ward," Holt greeted, voice gravelly but warm. "Glad to see you walking again." Ethan rose and shook his hand. "Trying to, sir." Holt's gaze dropped to Rex. "And that must be the legend himself. The department's been asking when they can meet him. Half the city's talking about the dog who swam through hell." Ethan smiled faintly. "He's not ready for the spotlight yet. Needs rest more than medals." Holt nodded in understanding. "There'll be time for both. The mayor's planning something big. A dedication ceremony when the bridge reopens. They want to name it after the two of you." Ethan blinked. "After us?" "Bridge of Valor," Holt said simply. "Seems fitting, don't you think?" For a long moment, Ethan couldn't speak. The words felt too heavy, too undeserved. He looked down at Rex, whose eyes met his, full of quiet certainty. When the day of the ceremony came, Riverside gathered under soft, falling snow. The air buzzed with warmth despite the cold. Camera flashes, murmurs of admiration. The distant hum of church bells echoing across the valley. Ethan stood before the crowd, uniform pressed, but worn, Rex seated proudly beside him with a new collar of polished leather and a silver tag engraved with a polycor. Single word, faithful. Behind them the new bridge gleamed, a monument not of steel but of sacrifice. The mayor spoke first, her voice carrying over the river. "Tonight we honor not only the courage that saved lives, but the bond between man and creature, a reminder that love and loyalty know no boundaries." Applause thundered. Rex tilted his head, ears twitching at the sound. Ethan took the microphone, his voice quiet yet steady. "I didn't build this bridge, I didn't even save it, but this dog, he built a bridge between life and death, between grief and grace. When everything fell apart, he showed me what faith looks like." He turned toward Rex and knelt, resting a hand on the dog's chest. "You saved them. And then you saved me. Maybe God never left us after all." Rex gave a low bark, soft, almost like a reply, and wagged his tail. The crowd erupted in applause, tears glinting in the corners of more than a few eyes. As snow began to fall again, light from the bridge lamps cast a golden glow over the river. Ethan looked up, smiling through the mist of his own breath. And there, beneath the Bridge of Valor, stood two souls, one man, one dog, bound forever by courage, loss, and the quiet mercy of miracles. Sometimes, miracles don't come with thunder or lightning, they come quietly, in the shape of a loyal heart, a second chance, or a soft bark that reminds us we're never truly alone. When the bridge fell that night, Ethan thought everything good in his life had been buried beneath the ice. But God was still working, not in grand gestures, but in small mercies, in the warmth of a rescued child, in the courage of a wounded dog who refused to give up, and in the simple truth that faith always finds a way back home. Maybe that's what miracles really are, not something we wait for, but something we choose to see, even when the world looks cold and broken. So tonight, if you're watching this, hold close the ones you love, forgive the ones who've hurt you, and never doubt that light still exists in the darkest places. Because somewhere beneath every storm and ruin, God is still building bridges through us and for us. May He bless you, protect your home, and guide your heart. If this story touched you, please like, share, and comment to help more souls feel the same hope. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next story of faith, loyalty, and the quiet miracles that walk among us. May God bless every heart that still believes.